Recognition of visitors and delegation. School safety award.
I'm proud to announce that the school district was again this year, for the second year in a row, awarded with a School Safety Award of Excellence. And it's to recognize school district's outstanding effort to create a safer school environment. We were awarded with titanium level with honors, so the highest level that you could attain. Again, it's the second year in a row. We were also awarded with a $500 grant to use for, to utilize towards some safety efforts. We, again, this year purchased additional communication devices for the school buildings, and those devices are radios. So we were able to purchase a significant amount of additional radios to distribute around the buildings to the teachers in the different wings in the hallway. So I'd like to recognize Mr. Bannock as our safety coordinator, and Mr. Morgan. I'd also like to give him some additional thanks on this. He coordinated the efforts to put together this grant and worked well with all of the principals. This is the size of the grant that has to be submitted. So it's quite a bit of an effort. It was great to work with John the first year, in his first year on this as well, and we'll keep him on board with this to continue our efforts moving forward in the future with new initiatives with safety. So, great job, and Mr. Null.
Certainly, as we look at our curriculum review process, and we're always looking at best practices and strategies, we appreciate all of your efforts in doing that, and it's truly the continuous improvement. So we appreciate everything you do. Very good. If you both come up here, we'd like to take a photo with you. So, congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And I'd like to
Congratulations.
Thank you. Mrs. Holmes to be in the picture as well. She's the BGNC chair.
If I had known, I would have. I would have worn my navy blazer and my tie, just like you.
One more.
Yes.
That's why I miss you, Harry.
We'll just hold
And
Mary.
we'll put this up on our website.
One more.
Ay, ay, ay.
There we go.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Well done. The hair. You can see it.
Did you get that on film?
You betcha.
Would anyone else like to address the board? Going once, going twice? Sure. Wonderful, great, great job. Presentation of winter athletic report. Mr. Matt.
Brought a few copies for you. I realize that Mr. Knoll disseminated this information to you previously. And good evening, and thank you for having me. Given that you've already had the information, I'll try to be brief. I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence because I know everybody here is capable of reading. And more so want to use this the opportunity. This is the first time that I've been asked to develop this report. And probably 99% of my colleagues across the area don't have to do a report. So this template and format was something that we developed at ourselves in the athletic office. So I'm just going to go through some highlights real quick for you. Again, not to insult your intelligence, but really if you have any feedback on other information that you would like to see in this report or anything that you would like me to change in terms of future templates, you can certainly look at that and make that happen in the future. But quickly to the highlights. Boys swimming, Section 3 champions, 2 individual champions and 2 relay team champions. They won the sectional meet by a total of 61 points, which was impressive. Had a big upset win over Mexico. In swimming, the coaches can kind of tell a couple days before the meet what the score is going to be by comparing times. They see each other's times online, and they try to stack the deck so that they can accumulate the most points. And on paper, we really shouldn't have won that meet. Our kids did a phenomenal job on that day. Wrestling had a successful season, 4 Class A champions, 3 of which became Section 3 champions. All three of those student athletes participated at states, which I was able to attend. They did a great job. Two of them finishing fifth. And not only did we have 3 Section 3 champions, we also had 3 others, I believe, place a third, a fourth, and a fifth. So we actually did a tremendous job in wrestling. Gymnastics is a fall sport, but states is completed in the winter. And I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that we had our Section 3 champion. She finished all around at states 5th, and she was 3rd in 2 exercises as well at states. Sportsmanship, a quick brief synopsis there. For any Tri-Valley League basketball, boys and girls, and volleyball game, home or away, where both schools are Tri-Valley League schools, the officials fill out a sportsmanship ballot. And that reflects the behavior of our student athletes, our coaches, and our student fans and adult fans as well. We can accumulate a total of 2,370 points through sportsmanship, and New Hartford accumulated almost a perfect score, 2 points short, 2,368 points. So I was very pleased with that. One of the things I'm most proud of is on page 4, Scholar Athletes. All of our eligible varsity winter teams earned the distinction of Scholar Athletes, with the exception of cheerleading, and that's why I said eligible varsity teams. Cheerleading is a new varsity sport in New York State, so they don't have criteria for them to qualify as a Scholar Athlete team at this point. I'm sure they'll develop it in the near future. So when you see all the teams in here, I don't want cheerleading to be slighted or think that they're not great kids as well, because they certainly are. Well, you can see on page 10 the averages: indoor track girls 95.7, indoor track boys 93.9, volleyball 93.8, swimming and diving 93.4, girls basketball 93.3, boys bowling 92.8, girls bowling 91.9, wrestling 91.4, boys basketball 90.6, and ice hockey 90.5. And if you're curious what that averaged out to, that was 92.77. So very pleased with our teams. I'd like to thank Mr. Morgan and his staff and Ms. Mandel. We were able, even though the facilities were in full use this past winter, and I wanted to include in the back, and for you folks, it's in color. I think Mr. Knoll sent you original color. The one downside with the winter season is that we have more demand than we have facility. So I just want to give you an idea of, this was just 1 week schedule using all our gymnasiums, and that 1 week was just a snapshot in time. Every week was like that. Every gym was completed, had use to the max. In fact, our JV and varsity teams only have the opportunity to practice at an hour and a half, when by all rights I should try to get them 2 hours, but we just don't have enough capacity to fill the need. Also, one of the reasons I want to thank Mrs. Mandel and Andy is with the pool. We identified that there was a need to get some work done in the pool, and that work has been completed at the end of the winter season. So we're very pleased with how that worked out. The water was emptied, new tiling, new grouting, and it looks like a completely different pool. The water looks much clearer. It was much needed, much overdue, so we're happy that that was completed. I'm going to go to page 8, athletic participation. For quick math for you right there, of varsity athletes, I believe we had 195 athletes. In the winter, JV 62, modified 106, JV and varsity combined 257, modified through varsity 363 kids participating in athletics. And back to page 6, you will see the list of coaches that we had this past year for the varsity programs. I do anticipate that, well, I know that 2 of the coaches will not be coming back, so we'll be searching for those candidates to take over those programs. How I've been doing that is I've been following the process that has been somewhat in place. I hope I've made it a little bit better. But anytime we have a coach's opening, or anytime we advertise all our coaching positions internally to see if there's an internal candidate that would like the coaching position. If they apply, And then if there is no internal candidate, and what we mean by internal candidate after working with the association is any currently employed member of the bargaining unit. If we don't have an internal candidate, then after 10 days, we'll then post externally in the Observer Dispatch, OLAS, and I'll also post it on the Section 3 website, which is something I'm not sure that was done in the past.
And OLAS is an online application system statewide.
If anybody has any questions.
John, what about the Perry Gym? What's been,
Perry Gym, we're just in discussions in terms of, and there's a lot of things that we're in discussion with Andy and his staff and Mary, that, and I think what we're going to do there is they're going to include me in the building condition survey. And during that next building condition survey, we'll identify the needs with the athletic facilities. That's where I'll come into play, and from a safety perspective as well. And we've just been starting to develop lists of things that we would like to see done in the gym. Not only Perry, but the high school gym and other facilities as well. There's other items that we would like to have completed in the pool. The grouting and taking care of the actual water, the actual pool itself is just tip of the iceberg. There's things externally that we would like to do there, locker rooms, lighting, ceiling tiles, and so on and so forth.
Are these the kinds of, is this capital project stuff? Or is this operational maintenance type stuff like sanding? I mean,
I think a lot of the items would end up in a capital project. Some of the things may end up internally, depending on the cost per se. For example, we're probably not going to be able to wait on starting blocks, and Andy and I have talked about getting starting blocks in the pool. Looking at the starting blocks that we've had and the fact that they've already been welded, and to repair them at one point in time, we're probably not going to be to the point where we break ground on a capital project. We may have to take care of that before a capital project. But as you know, and as the board knows, in dealing with capital projects, it would be best suited if we could fit as many of these items as possible, because it can possibly be aided. Whereas if we're doing it on our own,
yeah.
We're going to.
I just hate for you to wait. I mean, if the floors need sanding and refinishing, it could be a safety.
That's an operation.
Yeah, and the floors get refinished every year.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll be finishing, and I've been working with Andy and a couple of staff on finding maybe a little different product that may dry quicker. So.
And lighting could be an internal project as well,
Sure.
especially if it generates some savings.
Sure.
each year we do a little bit of each of those.
John, with the schedule as tight as it is, are teams feeling like they're getting enough time in practice?
Well, I think they realize that they're getting enough time for what we have. Nobody's getting slighted or cheated. The varsity teams are getting an equal share of the pie in the gyms. The JV teams are getting an equal share of the pie in the gyms, and so on with the modified teams as well. They realize it's a catch-22. We want our youth programs and our community programs to have access as well, because those programs are our future, but at the same time, to fit them in and try to get them in, it's challenging and difficult. So they're very good at making the best of a challenging situation. If we had another gym, that wouldn't solve the problem, that would just ease the problem, because if we had another gym, we would have more capacity for our varsity and JV and modified teams, but we would still fill that as easy as we're filling all the gyms right now. I can guarantee you that. Because again, as I stated in the report,
Well, I guess my question is,
supply
there are other
far
things we can look at that, I don't know, I mean, I'm sure other gyms are full too, everybody's
Right.
indoors and doing stuff.
Right, one of the things that Andy and I have been working with, and we were talking about getting new volleyball standards for Miles Gym. Just a simple little solution, but having volleyball standards at Miles Gym gives me a little bit more flexibility with scheduling, because right now volleyball can only go in high school and in Perry. And we were looking at a cheap set of standards that has decent tension, that would be able to, kids in Miles would be able to benefit from too, in terms of the PE department, but that would give my scheduling piece a little bit more flexibility in getting some teams elsewhere, which may open up some things for basketball teams if I can get volleyball teams at Miles. So it's just a little thing that we can do in the meantime until somebody comes through with a field house for me. So.
No, I was waiting. No. What took you so long?
I'm playing model, not just for me, it's for
We
here
had
too.
talked about volleyball, I think, is in most, outside of our section or outside of our district, it's a different season, right? Is there any talk about moving that?
There's occasional chatter. I'm involved in that chatter. For the most part, I think Section 3 may be the only section, and not the entire section, participates in volleyball. The volleyball, girls volleyball statewide is a fall sport.
Right,
And
which
that was
precludes us then
certainly-
by participating if we do well in section to
Right.
go to states, for example.
Right, exactly. And if girls volleyball was in the, were to be located in the fall, that would absolutely ease the stress and tension that I have in the gyms right now. The problem is, I've talked to some of my colleagues about that. You have twofold problem. One, New Hartford can't jump into the fall volleyball season on its own because we need the TVL and surrounding schools to go with us, or else we have nobody to play without traveling an unreasonable amount of miles. The other thing that we have is, right now with the current volleyball team we had this past season, it really wouldn't have been too big of an issue. But the future volleyball players that we have coming up are also soccer players, so there'd be a little decision and choice that would have to be made there. So that would be a difficult conversation, I'm sure, for some people.
Girls volleyball was like humongous this year. There were a ton of kids, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the modified level,
They had a cut, I think.
whoa, cut wasn't.
Like
yeah,
half the,
Yeah, I think we had 46 kids come out from
Yeah, it's like
modified
a ton,
volleyball,
like
and he
girls.
kept a large number, we still had to cut
Mhm.
16, 18 kids.
it's funny how they just go in cycles like that.
Yeah. All tall, lanky kids, too.
I guess the other thing I'd like to see is, future changes or things that you see coming down the road, like with maybe winter sports or something in terms of state regulations or whatever, just maybe as a little
Sure.
blurb on your,
You'll be getting something shortly. Mr. Knoll and I have had a conversation about the selective classification process being changed to an APP process, and I'm trying to, been a little busy the last couple of days in case anybody hasn't heard. But I have trying to develop a memo to get to him to that, and we'll probably need some policy change, because we have a policy regarding that process. So that's the big change that's going to affect us the most immediately.
John,
Sure.
just a question, have there been any further changes or developments with regard to football in terms of concussion and head injuries, or any, rule changes about where?
Yeah, actually, I went to my, the conference, and thank you for allowing me, supporting me, and going to the conference in Albany. Yeah, one of the rule changes this year is less contact during the week. They're gonna minimize how many, 2 days of contact a week. That rule doesn't come into play until after the initial 2 weeks of the season. After the scrimmage, then it goes into effect, where it'll be 2 days of contact a week only. 90 minutes a day, I think, and I'd have to look at my notes, but it clearly defines what contact is.
Does it affect hockey too, or just football?
No, just football right now.
Any talk of the shells over the helmets?
Actually, a gentleman from the National High School Athletic Association, he came and did a wonderful presentation, and his offices are right next door to the NCAA, so that organization actually communicates with the NCAA on almost a weekly and daily basis. Their 2 buildings are actually connected by a hallway on the 2nd floor. I'm not sure how that works, but that's what he said. And he actually said the shells, and he warned us up front that that is just a marketing gimmick, and there's no sound research that says that's going to prevent concussions. In fact, he put up on the screen that there's one company that claims to be, and I don't remember the exact names, Mr. Funder, but it was like the soft shell concussion reducer.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a 60-minute clip with so you're saying your product reduces concussions? No. Well, but that's what your company's called. Well, we're not saying that our product reduces concussions.
Just implying it.
So, and the warning for us as athletic directors was these people are gonna try to grab a hold of your booster club programs, who are gonna put pressure on you, school board members and administrators to buy these products, when again, there's no scientific research. The best thing we can do is limit contact like you're doing and teach kids appropriate technique. People fail to realize that helmets protect against skull fractures. They're not going to.
Stop concussion.
No, that's inherently a part of the game, and with safe football, that's hopefully is changing. When you and I played, concussion snarling, salt in your back in, and practicing on Monday, and there's better protocols in place now than there was in the past.
John, on the subject, on the subject of helmets, we talked for a couple of years about the NCAA maybe coming down with changes for girls lacrosse. And I just saw a story, or I read an article about some sort of padded headband that they were using in some places, and they were saying that that was actually less helpful because the girls couldn't see.
Yeah, the headbands, and those are more related to soccer than lacrosse, but many soccer players who have been, not here, but I've seen it else, other places that purchase headband. Same thing with the skull caps, there's really no scientific research that those are preventing concussions. The cap may help with a skull fracture, but as with the helmet, it's really not going to prevent concussion. Haven't heard anything specifically about girls lacrosse. Have the same concern as you. When I watch girls lacrosse here, I'm just amazed that they're out there with a pair of goggles and a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is, it's not even, one of the things that I read, it wasn't what I either read it or saw it. They were talking about girls lacrosse specifically because it's one of those sports where the boys clearly, they
Right.
have helmet, it's much more difficult, but they're not supposed to hit in that area on the girls, but they thought that if they wore these, that then they would be more likely to hit there, but really, it's the ball speed too.
It's funny that you mention that because the NHL has some old timers from the National Hockey League have stated that the reason why they didn't have so many concussions in the '70s is because they didn't have helmets and players respected each other because they didn't have helmets. You don't see the head-on collisions that you have now with people being jammed into the boards. And Joe Paterno, obviously his name wasn't as good graces that it used to be, but he often said if you want to stop concussions in football, take the face masks off and they won't be hitting with their heads anymore.
Thank
Well,
you.
John, thanks for the report. I'm quite sure this is the first. I don't remember anyone else having.
This document doesn't exist statewide, so we
This is
developed
great.
this as a work in progress.
So-
And we will, we will add to the table of contents any state
Right.
section.
Yeah, if there's anything you'd like me to alter, there's some other information I would have liked to put in the document, for example, maybe tracking our averages or academic averages. And I just didn't have a baseline, so I'm using this as a baseline, and maybe over time, you'll see a graph where it'll show like our average in 2014 and 15, 16, 17. But I'm just gonna have to spend more time here to make that happen. And I can't take complete credit for the document. I mean, Mr. Schweitzer helped me in Googling. I found that at a couple colleges, they had something similar, and we just made it fit for our needs in Hartford.
Great.
Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Bannick about how we post things? Because I know last time we had questions about the posting process. I just want to remind everybody now is the perfect time if you have additional questions about the process. We have them here. No?
Did you? You had some questions on that?
All right.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of minutes, regular meeting of April 7, 2015. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. 6, correspondence and communications.
Yes, I have 3 items. One, I have a thank you card here from one of our staff members for the letter of support that the Board of Education recently distributed, and it's on our website, giving the letter of support that we recently issued. Secondly, I had an email from a parent about one of our guidance counselors and commending his outstanding efforts in assisting her daughter with various activities. And lastly, I received a letter from the New Hartford Teachers Association, or I should say an email, and they're looking to come to our board meetings and present teacher products or materials that they're utilizing in their classrooms. And I had suggested that we do that from time to time, and we also have scheduled one of our music teachers to come and present a resolution and highlight a performance they had at the state capitol. So they will utilize that for the upcoming May 5th meeting, and they will let me know of any teacher products that they want to present. If for some reason they forget, we can always address that under recognition of visitors and delegation as well. But we will honor that request, and I will distribute that email as well. And that concludes correspondence and communications from me.
Yeah, Deb Dowling approached me in the sense they wanted to have teachers come and talk, and I said, I thought that was a great idea, and I presented it to the board, but you can't imagine that we wouldn't want teachers to come and talk about things they're proud of. Great. All right, thank you, Mr. Knoll. Board committee reports, BG&T, April 8, 2015. Ms. Stotts.
It's kind of a long report, we covered variety of things. So, we had a district safety review. Mrs. Mandel, Mr. Bannock, and Mr. Knoll attended the Safe Schools New York Regional meeting that was facilitated by New York State Police and the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. They got a variety of information from that. I'm sorry, Mr. Bannock isn't here, but he alluded to maybe, as a result of that meeting, changing the way we classify some of the things within the school. They're continuing to move forward. He announced that school community outreach coordinators, SCOCs, we have acronyms, are assigned to each New York State Police Troop and are available to present to the schools and community groups. They're well versed in the intricacies of school safety and security, crime prevention and deterrence, and effective crisis response. They're our contact point to coordinate and assist with obtaining the tools and training and resources necessary. John Bannock also provided an update about the school safety officer program, the fact that they are getting, I think, going through the process now of photographing the staff for their staff badges. These are what he refers to as the dumb badges, not the smart badges. They're simply identification as opposed to the smart badges that we had discussed that would be a swipe in, swipe out. But we also noted that, if you guys recall, we have that mutual link system now. The New Hartford Police Department still doesn't have it in place. They were going to be following up to try to figure out why they haven't gotten it. We talked about the fact that the New Hartford Police Department will contract with the district for the summer school safety officer that will be located at Perry. I had gotten an inquiry from a community member about the products used in brine. The brine is the liquid that the town sprays on the roads, including the one that runs down the side of Perry, presumably to keep the snow from freezing and remove salt. There were some concerns that it would be, in some places, the brine is actually gotten as a byproduct of hydraulic fracturing. And it's a legit concern. And they confirmed that they make their own brine. It's just salt mixed with water, and that's what they're spraying on. Okay, any questions on that section? It's long, so I figured.
I do have one
Sure.
question. When are we going to be doing the survey of the safety officers?
I think from BG&T, and correct me if I'm wrong, we felt we were working on how we were gonna term that, because we felt at BG&T that with John's recommendation and with ours, that we would expand that program so that we were fully covered, and then we would talk about kind of how we wanted to phrase the questions, because it really wasn't an issue of, we as the board would make the determination as to whether or not the program should be expanded, and we actually did make that recommendation, and it has been, it's included in the budget moving forward. But we were gonna question just kind of what the comfort level was of parents, how they felt about it, you know.
How it could be improved?
Yeah, anything like that. So I think we were still working through the conversation about that. Do you have anything to add to that, Amy?
Our June 3rd meeting, we'll be reviewing the survey. We wanted to make it very brief so that we could get as much response as possible. So at our June 3rd meeting, we'll be deciding on final language.
And also I think we were talking about who
Discussion
we
about
would
it.
disseminate it to as well.
Okay.
So is the plan to have that sent out before the end of the school year or at the beginning of the next school year?
And I think that was part of what started the whole debate, because we didn't have the program fully implemented at the time that we had this discussion.
Right.
So we needed to make the decision about the budget, which we did at BG&T, but it was kind of like, wouldn't make sense to survey parents in some of the elementaries that didn't have representatives from the program. So I think the plan would be, now that it's fully implemented, then to ask the school community what they thought, how they felt about it.
Yeah, all I would say is, because, like, I've been telling people, you know, there's gonna be a survey, so if it's gonna be next year, that's fine, let's just get out in front of the communication so
Yeah.
people don't think we're
Yeah, no, I understand.
going back on.
Mr. Bannock and I are meeting next week on it, to kind of revisit the key questions, the three
Yes, we
questions.
can discuss that.
And we talked about June.
Okay,
Okay.
that'd be great, okay.
Thank you.
I'll provide you with an update. Okay, the New York School Municipal Energy Consortium bid, try saying that 5 times fast. NISMIC, that's the acronym for that. We just completed the bidding process. We did pretty well. The supply price for gas decreased and the electricity price increased slightly by 0.007 cents per kilowatt hour. They're very favorable and they're in line with what we allocated in the budget. Mrs. Mandel also represents the New Hartford Central School District and the Oneida, Herkimer, Madison, BOCES school districts to serve on the NISMIC Advisory Council. So just so you guys know, and these make, in addition to saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars, they've saved millions of dollars for the municipalities that go through them. We talked a little bit about the cellular network. We signed an agreement so that the Miles Elementary property, but further back, that they would just evaluate the site. It's not a commitment to putting anything there, it's really just so that Verizon can take a look at it and see if they even want to consider it.
My only 2 cents on that.
Yep.
Let me know if we're gonna go forward with that,
Mhm.
okay? Let me know who the lawyer is that we're using, because, I mean, I've done cell tower leases for 15 years. Not a lot of people do cell tower leases. If you don't do them, Verizon will take advantage of you big time. There is a wide range of how you can structure your compensation with the carriers, so just keep me in the loop, so.
That's like, we're like,
Okay.
we're at the baby step portion of it.
I just don't want us to get the raw end of the deal. I didn't say I was doing it, I was just saying.
And I heard Gratis, and I heard Gratis in there
And
too.
then do that again. Lower than all.
Okay, in other kind of good news for our safety and our things was, there was a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the DEC, performed an unannounced inspection on the school bus garage. Mr. Gagliano and the transportation firm involved with the inspection were commended for their efforts. They had no violations present, which is pretty amazing.
So they just randomly show up and say, we're here.
Yipper. They random, and they check everything.
No violation?
No violations.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. I mean,
That's really
that's,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, look at the restaurant inspections that you pay for, there's always stuff.
Those are buses, and then they check
Yeah,
everything.
he's got that
I guess they
shit.
check not just the building, but also the tank outside,
Yeah.
and make sure that there's nothing leaching anywhere, and, yeah, so we had no violations.
Great.
primary, secondary, tertiary containments, I mean, there's a lot
Yeah,
of stuff
it
goes
was
in there.
incredible, but, yeah, no violations, so if Mr. Gagliano was here, I would say, good job, we did tell him that in the meeting. We also talked a little bit about, and Mr. Gagliano provided us with a report. I don't know if you guys have seen in the press, they were discussing the infill in synthetic fields and how, in the past, I guess they were recycled rubber out of tires. And there's been some concern that particularly soccer goalies, kids who spend a lot of time with their face in that, were exhibiting all sorts of medical issues. He wanted to confirm to us that the infill in our synthetic field is virgin product. It is not recycled, it is not, it was born to go where it is, and that's where it is. It wasn't a tire in a previous lifetime, so there's no elevated human health or environment risk from ingestion, inhalation, or dermal contact with our type of synthetic, just so it knows. Any questions about that section? Okay. Moving on to the Perry Junior High Science Room. So, the maintenance department was called in to investigate the possibility of mold growth on the floor of the storeroom that was adjacent to a science classroom at Perry. Upon consultation with Oneida BOCES Safety that day, we hired an air quality testing firm to take moisture readings from the walls and the sink areas in the room. In addition, they also take samples of the wall material from within the wall cavity of these areas and air samples from both inside and outside of the classroom. The consultant indicated that the substance found was not airborne and wasn't exposed to the classroom, but they still recommended removal. As a preventative measure, they take essentially any place that there's anything that looks like mold, you take that entire section of drywall out and replace it, and that's what they did. They had to pull the sink cabinet away from the wall, they removed the drywall, they replaced the drywall, they replaced the sink, and it was completed prior to the restart of school after break on April 2nd. Okay, but all the reports, from what I gather, came back on us. We're waiting for the last part. Yes, after that.
Very low levels.
Yeah, okay, great. Any questions about that? And the last one is the fire inspection report. Mr. Morgan distributed and reviewed a summary report for the annual fire inspection. The inspection took place during the month of March 2015. The district passed the inspection with a few minor nonconformities, which will be corrected prior to the due date submission to the State Education Department of May 2015. I think one of them included the removal of a non-functioning emergency handle that, I think, is he gonna remove that? Yeah, so, but that was it. That also, again, was we passed with very minor non-conformities, nothing, no major violation. And the meeting adjourned at 12:50.
You did all that in 48 minutes?
I know,
Listen,
wow.
we don't mess around with these things.
I couldn't make it.
That's
You were
why.
there, why?
That's why.
That's not true, he was there.
All right, thank you.
You
Beth.
are welcome.
Community Relations Committee, April 8th.
I'll take the mic from you, Beth. Community Relations met on April 8th as well. The first thing on the agenda was we talked about the budget newsletter. Mrs. Nanda reviewed key components of the newsletter, and we, talked about the format and everything that's in the newsletter. All the budget information is available on the website. And Mary, when is that scheduled to go out?
The schedule to be in mailbox is May 9th.
That's midnight. Okay.
Everything will be on the website.
Okay, good, thank you. Then we talked about the report card newsletter. We reviewed a draft of that. It includes information about student events, assessment results, athletic awards, budget notice, safety information. There's something about the recent trip to Costa Rica. There's something about the students that were just recognized by the OD, the Student All-Stars, a variety of things. And that is scheduled to go out when, Mr. Hyde?
That goes out right after the budget.
May 16th.
Yeah.
May 16th, okay, so everyone's mailboxes will be full of information about New Hartford. We talked about, again, we met on April 8th, which was right after the governor's whole education plan was approved, and so we sort of talked about what to do. We talked about putting together a fact sheet that we were going to send home to students. We felt that we needed to get, Mr. Hyde volunteered to get all the information together once sort of like the dust had settled, and can you comment on the status of that?
Yeah, we are just about done. In fact, we have it in draft form. So we will review with community relations,
Okay.
and then we'll give to the entire board.
Okay,
We want to post it on our website too. There's a lot of questions out there, there's a lot of
Yeah,
misinformation
I know.
out there. It's changing as we speak.
Well, I was gonna
In the
say-
last Friday
Yeah.
letter, you saw there was a change
exactly,
within hours
right.
of information being distributed.
And I do want to say, sort of following up from what you said, I know we sent this letter out to the teachers, and I've gotten nothing but just really great thank yous, and I went to the Teacher Center Policy Board, and every single teacher that was there came up to me and really thanked me and felt good about it. So I appreciate Paul's taking the lead on this, and I think it was really a good morale booster, and for the entire district.
It was a joint effort.
Yes. Okay, on to the next committee, staffing and curriculum. We met on April 13th. The first thing on the agenda was we received the Social Studies Department report. I'm just gonna go through the highlights. The Social Studies Department will begin starting their exploratory phase of a curriculum cycle. Mrs. Halpin discussed the key points of what the department will be doing as they continue this process. They're involved in a reward school grant, and in part of that grant, they're creating new effective communicator writing tasks. The AP history exam will be administered in May. This is a new exam, so this new exam will be focusing on new standards. So they've been, getting ready for that. Members of the Social Studies Department are analyzing current schedules and making plans for next year. It seems that all the numbers from 7 through 12 are down. This could be the result of perhaps a lot of electives are being offered at the high school, so, kids are taking different things. Mr. Anderson will be teaching AP Economics next year for the first time, so he's going to be going to some AP training this summer, and all the other courses will remain the same. Any questions on that section? Okay, then we received the art department report from Ms. Parker. We reviewed the current staff for the district, and she talked about the goals for the department. She showed us some samples of that the students had completed, which were just terrific. And again, a lot of these things will be available for the community on May 16th at the district-wide art show. They're looking to review the sequence of courses to ensure that more advanced courses can be offered at the high school. We talked about the general drawing class that's offered as a dual credit with MVCC. And we talked about also increasing the number of students who are taking art courses, and they were just beginning to explore the idea of maybe adding an AP art at the high school.
We talked about sort of art, you know, sort of like from beginning, you know, from lower to higher. There's an art club at the junior high and senior high, and there's also an art club at Bradley Elementary and Miles Elementary. Photography students are assisting with the yearbook. So again, trying to incorporate art, you know, throughout, you know, K through 12, get students an opportunity to be involved in art. Again, the art show is May 16th, and all the student art will be displayed there, you know, in the gym. One more thing on the art program, there's been an emphasis on the infusion of technology into several art courses. Document cameras, which we just bought a lot of those, are also being used to enhance instruction. And there's being worked on, as I mentioned, in the elementary level with regard to curriculum and making sure the curriculum is aligned, you know, K through 12. Any questions on that portion? Okay, third item on the agenda, Delta STEM. Mr. Hyde presented information about the Delta STEM enrichment programs. As you know, this was the first year that we revised it to the Delta STEM and the Delta reading. We talked a lot about the Delta STEM numbers. I think they were probably shared in one of the Friday letters. We talked about, you know, there was a lot of females involved in participating in the 6th grade Delta STEM classes. And unfortunately, by the time they get to the high school, that number drops a lot. So we talked about ways to keep the females engaged in these classes. We talked about also, this is one thing that I've sort of been on my little soapbox about, how we've got this Delta STEM classes in 6th grade and getting kids involved in coding and things like that, and then there's really nothing at the junior high until they go to the high school. So we sort of talked about trying to see ways to, again, you know, get that to go throughout their, you know, elementary through high school. We talked about, you know, more technology clubs at the elementary level, and as I said, we got the numbers for the breakdown of male and females in the Delta STEM program. I did want to share, I want to pass this around, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Kathy Donovan, the Delta STEM teacher, sent this to us. Did you all see this? It's a newsletter that she sent home to parents from Delta STEM, and I was so impressed with this. It was just some great things the kids are doing, and she had some great pictures, great things, you know, great information. She had some great websites that the kids could go to for more information, and so I really like to share it because I thought it was great, really exciting and really great. Finally, we received.
Lisa, I'm sorry, I have one question on the Delta stuff, because I don't remember the numbers exactly, but looking back on the Delta STEM and the Delta ELA numbers,
Yeah.
Delta reading, we talk a lot about the girls not being in math and sciences. We don't talk a lot about the boys not being in reading. And as a mother of 4 boys, that's glaring for me because that's where my boys are. So, I mean, looking at the other side of that, we don't talk a lot about. So, so what are we? Do we talk about that? I mean, I don't hear a lot about that because everything's so geared towards technology and math for everybody, STEM for everybody, and then how do we keep the girls engaged? How do we keep the boys engaged in doing more English stuff?
That's a good question.
You know, aren't male teachers dropping off things like that, where we'd like to promote that a little bit more? I don't know, just a thought, but that was glaring for me because that's right where I live.
Yeah, I can put some information together for our staff.
Yeah, because it was the other way around for reading.
If you looked at the numbers, it was the other way around.
Yeah, so, but we don't ever say, oh gosh, why don't we get more boys involved in reading? I'd love to try to do that at home, but not very well.
Alan, the other question I had was, I mean, the numbers seem very low as far as actual students participating. And is that by design? I mean, so I mean, K through 6 at Miles, 27 kids are in Delta reading. You know, I mean, I know my son's in Delta reading. There's 3 kids in his Delta reading class. Right. So is that what you want, or is it that, you know, it should be double that number?
Well, we're going to examine that at the conclusion of this school year. We did apply the same criteria to all of our elementary buildings so that we had consistent and pervasive practices in reference to the criteria. So we will be taking a look at the end of the year. We're going to ask representatives from grade levels from each of the elementary buildings, and we'll look at the criteria and we'll look at the numbers as well, and perhaps be able to expand that for some of our Delta reading students.
Yeah, we talked about that pretty much at lunch, John. There seemed to be an anomaly regarding Miles versus Bradley versus Hughes
Yeah.
in participation rates, so, yeah, Alan's gonna be all over that.
Hey, it's great for my kids, 3 kids in the class, he's the only boy.
How'd you feel? You know, the only thing I recommend too with regard to the students, like, I've gotten a lot of questions about what
But
the
in
selection
general,
criteria
yeah,
is.
so
So
if
if
you
ever
have a
we
female
get
ratio,
technical
we'll split
levels
the
on
other
that
way.
review, I would recommend that we would
Yeah.
publish them beforehand.
Okay.
Yep.
The criteria, Val? I'm sorry, I missed.
Criteria.
your
Yeah,
first-
and I know you guys are evaluating the criteria moving forward, but I would say that for next year, my recommendation would be to publish it beforehand, to just say, you know, this is what we're looking at, this is how we made the determination. I think it would probably save you a lot of calls and questions and things like that, just so it's clear cut and it's upfront, so that we know exactly.
I think one of the points that I dealt with and that I answered a lot of questions about was, does the state test carry all of the weight for Delta? And it certainly doesn't. So I was able to answer that question to several parents who called. But thank you, Beth, for that.
Thank you. And finally, we received our Common Core update. Again, this was April 8th, so we were given you know, the numbers, updated test numbers for test refusal for the ELA and math assessments. We talked a little bit about the possible impacts on our district because of the large numbers. We talked about meeting adequate yearly progress. Federal law requires that states assess students in grades 3 through 8 on an annual basis. Again, this is federal law. It also requires that 95% of students in each school participate in the assessments. If a school does not meet the 95% threshold for testing, the school will not meet adequate yearly progress or AYP. The following schools did not meet AYP for the 13-14 school year: Bradley, Hughes, Miles, and Perry, which is not really a surprise. So, again, in addition, we've heard this before, failure to comply with the requirement can subject school districts to sanctions, including reduction of Title I funding. So again, this is something that we just need to be aware of. We probably, again, will not make AYP this year as well. So, you know, if we don't make it 3 years in a row, we could be on a list of a school that needs improvement. So
Now,
again,
you'd have to generate a local assistance plan. No local assistance plan would then have to be developed at the building level.
so.
But then
So
isn't-
last year was the first year we were on it.
Yes.
Well, but then isn't Congress considering doing away with testing as part of time testing Title I?
There's so much.
Yeah,
I
there's
know,
so much.
I know.
There
So again,
is.
it could all change, but this is just something that we just need to
It's going right down the drain.
be aware of.
Well, we've seen, I think, from a legislative standpoint, there have been threats about removing, you know, about penalizing schools from the federal level, saying, well, then we'll take their funding away. And we've seen motions from other politicians that are saying exactly what you said, to unlink those two things.
You know, and they're talking about they're talking about No Child Left Behind. They're talking about, you
Well, we
know,
all
changing it, right. So I don't know what that's gonna be too, so.
It's just.
We have received a waiver for some things, but, you know, and hopefully they will continue to look at that, our federal government, as far as the waiver goes, and
Yeah.
perhaps.
So.
and
Okay, so that was that meeting, that adjourned at 5:15. And before I hand over the microphone, I did want to report, I went to the New Hartford Teacher Center Policy Board meeting last week. And again, I'm a big fan. I think that Sandy and the whole, you know, they do a great job. You know, we got the report from them. They have a great new teacher induction program, and they reported on that. But the thing that I think impresses me the most is the number of professional development courses and classes that they offer. And I had Sandy give me a printout, and basically from October 1st through April 16th, they offered 145 different types of programs, whether it be
Wow.
team meetings, work sessions, workshops, online courses, or tech training. 145 offerings, and in those 145 offerings, we had 1,340 teachers participate. Which again, I just think it's amazing. I think it's amazing that we offer it. I think it's amazing that so many teachers avail themselves to it and participate and improve themselves, and I think this is what makes our district so great.
Great.
So,
Mr. President, regarding the NH Foundation, the Prince Charming Ball went great. Thanks for everybody's support and help, all the schools for that, all the elementary schools for that. And also the next large fundraising event is November the 28th the Don Edick roast for improvements to the Mighty Spartan Don Edick Field. That will be at Hart's Hill.
And what will that be
Is
rated?
that Thanksgiving? Is that Thanksgiving?
No one
weekend?
under 17 allowed in?
Coach Edick is very worried about that. Yeah, November 28th.
Okay, great.
Is that like right around Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's
Must
right
be.
in between,
Thanksgiving.
yeah.
It's like the turkey.
So more information to come on that,
Good.
the date settled, we're getting everything together.
Great.
That'd be fun. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, those are some meaty reports. 8, old business. A, third reading of policies/regulations. It is recommended the following policies and regulations be adopted following the third and final reading.
We need a motion for this.
We
right?
need a motion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. 9, new business. A, personnel. 1, appointment. A, bus aide.
It is recommended that Lorraine Dunn be appointed to the position of bus aide effective April 29, 2015.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. B, bus driver.
It is recommended that Renee Kowalski be appointed to the position of bus driver effective April 29, 2015.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. 2, reclassifications.
No.
School monitor.
Where's C? Oh, sorry, C, school monitor.
It is recommended that Heather O'Donnell be appointed to the position of school monitor effective April 29, 2015.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. Now we go to 2, reclassifications.
It is recommended that Susan Jones be reclassified from the position of school monitor to the position of teacher aide 1 effective September 1, 2015.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. B,
It is recommended that Chris Searson be reclassified from the position of senior cleaner nights to the position of senior custodian effective September 1, 2015.
Second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. C,
It is recommended that Dave Luthauser be reclassified from the position of cleaner nights to the position of senior cleaner nights effective September 1, 2015.
second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. D,
It is recommended that Jeff Davis be reclassified from the position of grounds building maintenance nights to the position of building maintenance worker effective August 17, 2015.
Second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 7-0. E,
It is recommended that Mary Bowie be reclassified from the position of bus driver to the position of teacher aide 1 effective April 29, 2015.
Second.
discussion.
Just, she's taken a significant pay cut for that, and that's just the way that works.
She signed up for the posting.
Okay.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Passes
Bus
7-0.
driver rates are usually higher because they're working less hours, 2 hours for a run, but they're giving up in one, and so for recruitment strategies, the hour is higher.
Okay,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Free for bus drivers.
B, adoption of BOCES budget for 2015-2016.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approves the tentative administrative budget of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, sole supervisory district of Oneida, Herkimer, and Madison counties, in the amount of $2,356,159.23 for 2015-16.
Second.
Discussion. What was it last year? And this is an increase.
Increase of approximately $50,000.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? abstained, passes 7-0. C, election of BOCES board members.
It is recommended that the Board of Education cast its votes for the slate of candidates as presented at the April 15, 2015 BOCES annual meeting.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, abstained, passes 7-0. D, committee on preschool special education.
The recommendations from the Committee on Preschool Special Education's meeting of March 27, 2015 are presented for approval.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, abstained, passes 7-0. E, committee on special education.
The recommendations from the Committee on Special Education's meetings of March 12th, March 24th, March 25th, March 27th, April 9th, April 10th, April 20th, and April 21st, all of 2015, are presented for approval.
Moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, abstained.
I have to abstain, John.
Abstain? Measure passes 6-0-1. F, 504 committee.
The recommendations from the 504 Committee's meetings of March 25th, April 9th, and April 13th, all of 2015, are presented for approval.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed, abstained. Motion passes 6-0-1. 10, other business, legislative update and ongoing board strategy. Is there really anything? It's on here just in case. We're kind of in a wait and see mode.
We did receive correspondence from the Hartford Teachers Association asking us to probably consider another forum,
Oh,
but
that's
they
right.
advise us to wait until June when SED, through the latest state budget, comes out with information. They're required to hold forums across the state and provide additional information on what the new annual professional performance review will look like. But until we see that, it'll be difficult to discuss the merits of those.
Yeah, I'm all for having another forum, I just want to have something to say.
Right.
How does it work with, without knowing what's coming down? How does it work with negotiations through the union and us to get?
We can't do anything until SED sets regulation. And then there's certain timelines, and then there's been discussion about extending those timelines, as you just said. So we continue to monitor it, but I think the fact sheet discussing tenure and some of the other law changes that came out, we're working on that. We'll work with community relations and get that information distributed up on our website.
Yeah, there's something about if the district wanted to do something different, then tenure became an issue. Then, you know, as far as how many times you had to be rated ineffective, it gave some leeway for the.
Yeah, you can put an extension, obviously, with a 4-year tenure, you can't have any effective in the last year, it could extend it, you can't have any effective.
But I think if we deviated, but if the school did something alternatively that was also approved, then it became even stricter on the evaluations.
There's a lot of information, so
Yeah.
we'll continue to evaluate it, but we're putting together that fact sheet, which at the beginning will be a work in progress, and we'll continue to do.
Okay, I have one additional item that I just want to get the board's take on. After our last meeting, I got lots of emails and phone calls, and I was kind of thinking about this. How do we as a board want to deal with anonymous letters? Because there's the unintended consequence of when it's passed around at a public meeting, now it's part of the public record, it's foilable, and there's all kinds of issues with that, and it almost gives it undue weight. And so my question to the board is, what are your feelings with how any one of us should deal with anonymous letters? My thought is, unless an anonymous letter says something where there is a threat or someone's in danger, I just don't want it. Because if you're not gonna sign your name to it, it's just.
That's glued up to the board. I mean, I give them no weight.
Right, but I think there's just some unintended consequences of distributing it in open meeting. So do we want, does the board feel that we should have a formal policy, or is it just, this is how we're going to deal with it, you know, or is it not an issue?
John, if it was given to us like other communication, like as part of the Friday letter, would that wouldn't be, that would be something that would just be to our eyes only?
Well, are the Friday letters all confidential?
No.
No.
I mean, I guess it goes to how much airtime does a anonymous letter deserve to get, other than they want the entire board to see it. If they send it to the entire board, then we all see it. But should any of us be propelling it, I guess is the question.
I just don't understand what the reply is. I mean, it's an anonymous letter. You know, there's anonymous hotlines in every company around the country. They're dealt with in a certain way. If people feel threatened, they need to know that it's not gonna be given weight, but certainly, like you said, I see absolutely no reason to stifle a communication that's written to the board, albeit anonymous and less trustworthy in its content. I don't know. Anybody can write a letter to anybody, you know?
Mr. Noel, how do you handle anonymous letters and when they come directly to you?
I read them. I guess if it's a safety violation or something that needs to be taken care of right away, I look into it. And then I file away. It's just
Well, I just don't want it to be where anyone can write anything. It's almost like online, you know, people, anonymous letters don't bring out the best in people, generally. You know, when you're not signing your name to it, there is a much easier, you're more easy to criticize or you know, opine about things. And I just want to be careful, and I just want us to be consistent. If the board, if this isn't an issue, then fine. If we, you know, but I just don't want it to be where every week now there's another anonymous letter. Not that there is, and I don't think this is an epidemic, but it was brought to my attention. I thought of it myself, even without it being brought to my attention. Oh, wait a minute, now this is public record. Is that appropriate?
As soon as the board member gets it, it's public record.
My suggestion, John, is if you get a letter, a board member gets a letter, give it to the superintendent.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it doesn't, you know, if we get an anonymous letter, if everybody feels like they want to see it for whatever purposes, we could distribute it again in a Friday letter. It doesn't have to be brought up at a meeting. I mean, we get it, if people want to foil it, then it's foilable, but like you're saying, bringing it up in a meeting gives it more credence than it really deserves.
If it was if a letter comes to any one of us that's just saying, oh, how great the school is, and it's anonymous, that's something that the board would want to say. I mean, once we start censoring stuff like that, it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope to start saying, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna make this a public record and then this not a public record. I just don't understand. I don't understand. It took about 2 seconds at the last meeting to distribute that thing. It was given the weight that it deserved, very little, and I don't see the issue. It's open form of communication.
Well, I certainly don't want to censor anyone. That's not the intent. The intent was to get the board's feeling. Okay. And if the board doesn't feel that any action needs to be taken, that's fine. Okay. But now we have discussed it and decided we're okay with that. And we can always address it in the future if it becomes a larger issue.
So again, if I'm just so I'm clear, if a member of the board gets a letter addressed to them, it's not given to the board, to myself, what do I do? Do I make copies and bring it to the board meeting? Do I send it to you? Do I send it to Bob? So tell me what the protocol is.
I don't know what the protocol is. That's kind of why. That's why.
I would think that anonymous letter discusses personnel issues, it is not to be brought in public session as a violation of your code of conduct. It is a violation of contracts. So I would strongly suggest that it is not brought to a public meeting.
That's why I suggest that the letters go directly to you.
I mean, it kind of depends on what the letter says, but I mean, you could get into it, and again,
But again, that's a slippery slope. I mean, again, we should decide if you get a letter, whether it's anonymous letter that says, we're great, or, you know, what do I do with that anonymous letter? What do I?
Same way we handle any personnel situation. Personnel is not to be discussed in open session.
I don't understand. I don't get the whole time. I don't understand the personnel issue, Bob. I don't understand the whole time. There's no-
Personnel matters always dealt with in executive session.
Wait a minute. An anonymous letter from somebody in the community is not a personnel matter.
well, but,
It's talking
It
about
discusses
one
it,
of us.
yeah, if all of a sudden the letter says, you know, John likes to kick puppies, and it's not signed, well, now, somebody might think I really like to kick puppies, or I now have to say, wait a minute, I don't kick puppies. You know, so it's, whatever bad act is in that letter, now there's, it's just,
Well, if it was signed. and you're
Well, if
going to
it's
discuss
signed-
personnel issues, you're going to discuss it in executive session. If it's unsigned and it discusses personnel issues, you're going to discuss those in executive session. That's my advice.
so maybe anonymous letters just get discussed in executive session.
So if it deals with personnel,
Deals with
or
personnel.
any executive session material.
Tell you what, if I get an anonymous letter, I'll call you up and I'll say, I got an
Oh,
anonymous letter.
wonderful.
Every letter
I
that
mean,
we receive,
normally we wouldn't get it, it would be just everyone.
every email we get is signed or unsigned, is going to be praising or criticizing somebody, right? Normally,
Yeah.
Normally.
There's not a lot of middle ground.
normally, right. And so it's always distributed, it's always out there. It's not a personnel matter, unless the board makes it a personnel matter. It is nothing but a letter. And I just don't see.
But I agree with John, if it's not addressed to the entire board, number one, is it really should be given any credibility if it's not signed and it's sent to you
No.
or one of us personally?
No. It should not by me, that's for sure.
So, but then back to what Lisa's saying, what do we, hand it to John, we hand it to,
I mean, this was the first time this has happened, so that's why it's raising a new issue.
Well, wait a minute,
There's
every,
contracts that govern that, and there's code of conduct.
every letter that I've
Policy
received,
that
every
governs
letter
it.
that I've received from, I've given to you guys. It's been like
But that-
3.
Right, well, but there have been, I think the difference was this one was distributed at a public meeting.
I distributed them all at a public meeting.
Were they all anonymous?
No.
Well, that, so,
Well,
right.
no.
Right, but so this was the first time that there was an anonymous letter that was distributed at a public meeting, and that's what's the impetus of the discussion,
All right. Well,
so.
the other two were criticizing, specific coaches and the whole deal, and it hasn't become a personnel issue. I don't see how letters from the public become a personnel issue. They're not anybody's boss.
Well, in 16 years, I haven't gotten an anonymous letter. So if I do get
It's
one.
because you don't check your emails, you've gotten lots of them. All right, so, look, I don't wanna make this a mountain out of a molehill,
Right.
I wanted to bring it up. I'm not sure we've solved
Maybe we're a little
it.
more cognizant, if we do get anonymous letters, just maybe a little bit more cognizant of what's in there and how it should be handled.
Okay. All right. What's next, Bob? What else you got?
2 items for executive session, pending litigation, I'd like to invite Attorney Joe Shields into executive session, and the employment history of a particular person in personnel records.
And I have one with pending litigation and the employment history of. Okay, so motion to go into executive session. Discussion, all in favor, go in 5 minutes.